Just past 6:30, I'm going to call this meeting to order. Hello, for those who don't know, I'm Elizabeth Easton, the current president. Hello, the current president of the Habitat Acquisition Trust Board. And at this point, I'd like to call the meeting to order. It's my sincere pleasure to welcome everyone to the Habitat Acquisition Trust Annual General Meeting. Thank you all for coming and participating in HAT's governance at our AGM. I'd also like to acknowledge that HAT works and stewards ecosystems as visitors in the traditional and unceded territories of the Wasanich, the Chianu, the Suk nations, and the Algonquin peoples, Songhees, and Kosapsum nations, and many other Coast Salish peoples who have lived in relationship with and stewarded these lands since time immemorial and continue to live in relationship to the land today. I respectfully ask that everyone to be respectful and cognizant of that relationship. So we'll move forward. We're going to look at the agenda. Has everyone had a chance to look at the agenda? And is there anything on the agenda that you'd like to talk about, have questions about, or any other business that you'd like to see added to the agenda? Not hearing anything. For those who might be on mute, not hearing anything. Then we'll go forward. Would someone like to make a motion to accept the agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda as submitted.
Thank you, Larry. Anyone to second? Anyone to second that motion?
I'll second it. Pierre here. I'll second it.
Thank you, Pierre. Okay. Next, we move on to the approval of the minutes of the last AGM. Has everyone had a chance to look at those minutes, or if you have any questions about those minutes, could you please speak up now? If we don't hear any changes to those minutes or any disagreements with them, then we'll move to approve the minutes of the last AGM. Would someone like to make that motion?
I move to approve the minutes of last AGM.
Excellent. Would someone like to second that? Liz, thank you. Liz Belcher. Okay. And then next we move on to the annual reports. We'll start off with the president's report, then there'll be the treasurer's report, and then the staff reports. This is going to be the main meat of the meeting. And as president, I will start. I'd like to say that just generally, this is going to be an overview. Despite the ongoing challenges around the world, it's been a very busy and productive year for HAT, and we've made tremendous strides on all of the 4 pillars of our strategic plan. By collaborating with individuals and organizations to conserve natural areas, by ensuring that HAT's work and actions foster and are guided by enduring relationships with the Indigenous communities in whose territories we work, by providing opportunities for people to engage with natural area as stewards, and by striving for organizational excellence. Our focus on land protection has culminated in 2 new protected areas, both of which will be described in more detail later in the meeting. It was very exciting though. It was great to have that happen this year. Participation in economic stimulus grants has allowed us to bring unprecedented resources to bear for restoration on HAT's protected lands, and our stewardship programs have continued strongly with an expanded focus on the coastal oak and prairie or Garry oak ecosystems. We've also been able to bring on more resources and talent to help us support Indigenous-led conservation efforts, which aligns with HAT's commitment to aligning our work with reconciliation principles. HAT's team of staff and contractors has grown this year, and we have a very talented group of people working every day towards our mission to conserve natural areas on southern Vancouver Island and the Gulf Islands through protection, collaboration, stewardship, and education. HAT is also has a very dedicated group of volunteers. People like Ben Van Drimlen, Carol Brown, Robbie Newton, Roger Hurd, everyone on our board, Juliana Laposa Wild, Christina Gian, John and Joan Potter, Andy McKenna, and a lot of more folks who make all our work very possible. Thank to you, our members for continuing to support HAT with your membership, your time, and your involvement. We could not do our work without you. You're going to hear a lot more from our treasurer, Liz, who's providing the treasurer's report, and Katie Blake and the staff about the amazing work we've done this year in the staff report. But thank you again for attending, and please feel free to ask questions during the meeting. That's really my wrap up to start everything off with. So if we could have a motion that the president's, or I can put forward a motion that the president's report be accepted. And I just need someone to second that if there's any.
Katie Bell seconds.
Thank you very much, Katie. And we'll move on now to Liz Belcher with the treasurer's report. Liz.
Okay, better that I'm unmuted if I'm going to give the report. Thank you, Elizabeth. I apologize. I'm going to stick to a script because otherwise I will take longer. But I do want to get through all the numbers and share all the exciting work that's happened this year, viewed through numbers. So I think Stanley is helping me with my PowerPoint. Thank you so much, Stanley. And I'll start by saying it's my honor to represent the HAT Board of Directors as their treasurer. It's the board's responsibility to ensure that the financial accountability of the organization by overseeing the budget. We've reviewed the financial statements for the 2020-2021 fiscal year, and I'll summarize them for you tonight. I want to share with you a description I read about nonprofits in Wikipedia. It states that the key aspects of nonprofits are accountability, trustworthiness, honesty, and openness to every person who has invested time, money, and faith into the organization. I really appreciated that statement. I mean, I really appreciate the HAT community, and I just wanted to share that with you. I thought it was kind of a powerful statement. The key message today from a budget point of view is growth. HAT has shown tremendous growth this year. Before getting into the numbers to share some of that with you, I do want to acknowledge a few people, and one of them is Michael Brinsmead. He's our HAT bookkeeper. I want to celebrate him again this year. He's had almost 14 years with HAT. In a nonprofit sector, there's a lot of turnover, and so that organizational history that Michael brings is just tremendous. His wisdom, his support, and help through many things budget-wise is very much appreciated. So I did want to really acknowledge Michael and his contributions. This year we've had tremendous increase in budgeting with our Mountain Road fundraising campaign. And I again want to thank Michael and also give a shout out to Chris Perrin, who was tracking all the donations through the database and shared the data entry load. And just as an example, there was more than 1,400 data entries for that wonderful fundraising campaign. So I really want to acknowledge them. Susan Ryan is our accountant this fiscal year. She's been responsible for the annual review and engagement report that we're talking about tonight. She's been generous with her time for HAT, and we appreciate her work. Thank you, Susan. Katie Blake, our ED, she's responsible for all the day-to-day transactions of the budget. This year has been especially challenging, trying to keep up with all that. We've had loss of staff as they've moved from HAT, which meant covering for staff. We've hired new staff, we've trained new staff, we've run a campaign, we've redesigned our organizational chart. We've done, HAT has accomplished so much this year, and I really want to acknowledge Katie and her team, all of the support. I know she is really enjoying working with such a wonderful team. I want to acknowledge all the staff for their commitment and dedication this year. It's been a really busy year, and they've really gone above and beyond. Lastly, and very importantly, I want to talk about what makes HAT special, and that's the community. We've really greatly appreciated our community, the support that we have, the donors, the members, the volunteers, the whole hat community that stood by us, that perseveres through COVID. We've had a big fundraising campaign, as I've mentioned. People are out there pulling weeds and counting bats and doing all those things, and we've really appreciated all of that. So let's get to the numbers. Stanley, if you could pull up the first slide. So this is our general fund summary. Our asset summary. The general fund you see is empty there. All our operational funds go through that, and so to capture that at any one moment is not too useful. So it's held in Van City, and that's where all the money comes in and out from for our programs and our work. The land acquisition fund is also held in Van City. It was created for all funds donated or received through fundraising that is especially for land acquisitions. The board approved a $50,000 donation toward the Mountain Road land acquisition in Saanich this year, and so you'll see that is shown here. Matson Endowment is invested at Victoria Foundation, and we use the yearly income for that from that endowment to manage the Matson Conservation Area in Esquimalt. The Hat Endowment Fund is also invested with the Victoria Foundation, and the yearly income from this endowment is used for land protection and the Good Neighbours program. The new covenant agreements include donations to this endowment to cover future management of the covenant lands. And our Hat Endowment Fund this year contributed over $12,000 to our income this year, and also Matson contributed over $5,000. So that's very helpful. The Doug Andrew Fund you'll see here, that was created in his memory. He was a naturalist at Goldstream Provincial Park. The fund is restricted for the purpose of improving the interpretive programs at Goldstream. And unfortunately, all the projects that they have slated for that are on hold for COVID. So this fund will disappear when all that good work is done, but it's still there. And we have a life estate, a house in Sydney that was generously donated to HAT in 2011. And I'm just acknowledging the increase in value in that estate this year. Okay, Stanley, that's the next slide now. So here's our general fund summary, and you'll see that there is growth. So you'll see the income has increased quite a bit this year. We've been very successful at raising a significant amount of funds for programming this year. Our income has been increasing over the years, but this year you can see a significant change. It's led to exciting changes at HAT with great activity in our program work and an increase in staffing to do all that work. We are showing quite a surplus this year, and I will explain that in the next slide. Just to comment about our deferred revenue, because as you'll see noted here, it's quite large this year. HAT restricted revenue can be deferred from year to year for program spending. And we do this every year, generally. This money has been received, but it hasn't been spent yet. You'll see that we have a very large deferred amount this year, over $809,000. And that's because $704,000 of that has been conveyed to CRD for the creation of the park on Mountain Road. But that was conveyed in November, so that was actually our next fiscal year. So we had to defer it to our 21-22 fiscal year. All right, the next slide, please, Stanley. This just shows you the surplus and how we have gotten that. We have been very excited to share with you that we purchased land in the Highland District. The Gins family sold the land to HAT substantially below market value. It was a terrific donation to us. The actual land value contributed $390,000 to the budget and significantly adds to the surplus for this fiscal year. We also had that very generous bequest from Marilyn Berry last year. At the very end of the year, we were not able to use it in last fiscal year. So this year, we did use $25,000 to leverage funds from Priority Places, which was a government granting program that required matching funds. So $25,000 had gone to that, and we were successful in that grant, and it has been fantastic for us this year how much we've been able to do with that money. So we greatly appreciate that. We have a small operating surplus showing here at $1,500, just over that. And I do just want to mention that the board is busy building policy for HAT. And one of the things we are working on is policy for a contingency fund, and this money will come into that conversation. All right, the next slide, please, Stanley. Okay, where do the funds come from? We used to be quite heavily dependent on HSP funding from the federal government, but now we've been really working hard to balance our income across different funding sources, and we are managing to do this better. It's work, but it's great that we have managed to spread our funding resources a little bit better from a risk point of view. We did successfully get slightly more government grants this year. We have our HSP funding for Trial Island still coming to us. BC Gaming grants, we were successful from the BC Gaming Fund. And this year, federal funds under Priority Places program for HAT Gary Oak Restoration Project came from the government. So this was great. There's been a significant increase in grants and gifts from charities and foundations. This income has almost doubled this year. I want to mention a few organizations that have given to us significantly this year. They have been very cognizant of the difficulty in COVID for a lot of nonprofit organizations, and they have been very generous. So I highlight Victoria Foundation, who has given us over $122,000 this year. The Machosen Foundation, over $24,000 this year. The Habitat Conservation Trust Foundation, over $128,000 this year. And I'll add Wildlife Habitat Canada, who has given us $100,000 for the purchase of the Gins land. So our foundation support has been tremendous. Very notably in the chart also, there's an increase in donations and memberships. Our memberships were up 65% this fiscal year. I want to give a heartfelt appreciation for the generous donations and continued membership in our organization. You can see how significant you are when you look at this bar chart. Donations for HAT land protection program totals over $360,000, largely due to the Gins donation this year. We also used 5,500 of these funds in part for our Mountain Road Forest campaign in this fiscal year. But the vast majority, as I said, will be deferred to next fiscal year. In other, it's generally just the sales, some service contracts we've done, sales of merchandise and bat boxes and t-shirts and hats, etc. But also this year, 50,000 shows up in other because that was the contribution that we made from the HAT acquisition fund for Mountain Road. All right, next slide, please, Stanley. How are the funds spent? Increased wages are reflected in the increase in program work. We've really had an exciting increase in staff, but that has meant a tremendous increase in work. It's been very exciting. So habitat management, land protection, and good neighbors have all had more funding and a lot of work done. Restructuring of HAT's organizational chart was initiated to help the growth of all the program work. It shows in this increased wages and benefits, all this staff increase. So very exciting for HAT. Consultants are supporting HAT in a number of different ways too. So those wages are reflected here. We appreciate the work of all of our contractors. We have Indigenous-led planning consultant who is supporting HAT to foster relationships with First Nations towards greater collaboration, understanding, and land stewardship. So this has been terrific for HAT. Our overhead for nonprofit organizations, the non-program expenses are shown here as overhead. And for nonprofits, we're supposed to keep that below 25% of our spending, and HAT is at 13% of total expenses. So we are well below an acceptable amount of non-programs spending for nonprofits. Our community and development program has been greatly affected by COVID. It includes fundraising and events, and we're really hopeful that maybe this year we can get back to a more normal amount of that program work. Our endowment spending I've already mentioned for mats and land and from our HAT endowment fund. Okay, Stanley, next slide. This shows the expenses by individual program. The proportion of HAT's expenses for land protection and habitat management has continued to increase over the years. 66% of program spending, significantly more this year. It was 50% last year. So fantastic work going on. HAT has been successful in partnering and fundraising for conserving land. We were successful in HAT was successful in a fundraising campaign to conserve the area known as Mountain Road Forest. That was a big program for us, project for us this year, and successfully purchased in large part, donated land from the Gins. And we've been working on partnering with the hope to create a conservation area in Metchosin. So a lot of exciting work going on, and hopefully you'll hear some announcements later this year about some of that. The significant change this year is almost the quadruple funding and expenses attributed to Habitat Management Program. This was funded by a large grant from Canada Nature Fund, Priority Places, it's known as, and the Habitat Conservation Trust Foundation. They both are connected to the Economic Stimulus Initiative. Some of the funding has been deferred, and we've also, we're going to get ongoing funding in this way. And this is very helpful and exciting for the work we can get done. Species of concern. This is primarily the HSP money for Trial Island, and also for our BC Community BAT program work. That's the two major areas for this. It is down slightly, 11%. It was 17% last year from the overall spending. And our Goldstream Chums and Green Spots program, which will be familiar to most of you, that is now grouped in, or it is grouped here in our youth engagement program. We had an NSERC fund, NSERC grant for completing that work, or for doing that work over the last 3 years. It was completed this year. We were unsuccessful with our application for another NSERC grant. So this will be one of our challenges this year, is to find a new funding source for our youth engagement. Okay, Stanley, the last slide, please. So HAT is still financially healthy. We are doing well. Our budget is in accordance with the Canadian accounting standards for nonprofits. Our assets are increasing, and we have no debt, which is part of our culture. So this is all good news for the membership. Our challenges that we met this year were maintaining this balanced and appropriate revenue mix. It took a lot of staff resources, and we really thank staff for the support and share the success of that Mountain Road fundraising campaign. So this was a great campaign for HAT. And we have new programming related to new grant opportunities. So we had some large grants this year focused on hiring for economic stimulus. We were able to hire a 4-person restoration crew. You'll probably hear more about them soon. And we successfully ran our programs in slightly different ways in order to honor the hiring and conservation objectives of these new grants. And looking ahead, HAT will continue to take on ambitious projects in a responsible way that manages risks while taking bold measures to meet our mission. We stay tuned for more announcements on this. With NSERC funds without the success of the NSERC fund, we have a new challenge to find funding for youth engagement this year, and we'll get on that. And HAT's board is working hard to develop policy. We have an asset management group that's meeting, and specifically, we're trying to develop policy around contingency funding right now. And that's the end of my presentation. If there's any questions. If not, I move that the treasurer's report be accepted as presented.
I'll second Pierre Iachetti.
Thank you. And I also move that the 2020-2021 financial statements be accepted as presented.
And I second that motion.
Thank you, Elizabeth. All right, so enough of the numbers. We're going to play a brief video that was produced this year to showcase HAT's Good Neighbors program. It features some of our dedicated habitat stewards, and I really hope you enjoy it.
The Good Neighbors program is a stewardship program with private property owners across the Capital Regional District. We provide landowners with tools to become effective stewards, which can include gardening with native plants, in removing invasive species, and creating wildlife habitat. The Good Neighbors program was inspired by the fact that over 80% of the land mass in the CRD is privately owned. These are critical pieces of wildlife habitat across the region, and a lot of those private property owners are wanting to know, how can we better steward the land in our backyards? We have been working on the Good Neighbors program for 15 years, and since then have engaged over 850 landowners across the Capital Regional District.
My name is Heloise Snickel, and I live on a piece of land and own a piece of land in Metchosin that is still relatively wild. There's a lot of native plants here, but it's totally been changed by humans. It's been logged. This area used to all be Daphne, and it's mainly been cleared out. The Good Neighbors program has really helped us to learn about our own land and what is important to keep and what is important to remove, and how to improve the health of the land. This house was literally built on a Gary Oak meadow, and I can see remnants of that all around. So I just want to try and improve that meadow again.
My name is Rod Mitchell. I'm a Metchosin resident, and we're standing here at a little wetland that I put together after finding frogs living in a wet test hole. And I decided there wasn't enough water for me to use, so we turned it over to the frogs and made it better. That's the short version. I had the advantage of being involved with HAT, and I had experts come out and tell me how I could make it better for free. Yeah, that's a big deal. HAT came out and planted a number of native plants all through here, and they did well.
I'm Nithya Harris, and I'm here in Calypso Woods in the southern part of Vancouver Island.
And I'm Scott Harris, and I'm here too. I don't know where I am. Sorry.
So this land is in a corridor from the East Sioux Park right to the Sioux Hills Wilderness Park. And so the animals have to go back and forth, and so by putting a covenant on it and protecting the land, you're ensuring safe passage, especially the big animals like the bears, the cougars, and the wolves. And people soon see that when they start doing these kinds of things. We live in an area here where development is rampant. Everywhere you look, forests are being torn down, basically logged, and development is happening. And that's the future, unless somebody does something about it. And our concern was that, you know, we right now are protectors of this land and we love the land, but what happens when we're no longer around? And when that happens, then we want to make sure the land is protected by organizations like HAT, because that means this land has a chance to become an old-growth forest like it should be.
There's a sense of community that is created in neat ways. You know, when I see another habitat acquisition sign, I know immediately I can have a conversation with that person and they get me. It's a way for people to come together and have an excuse to get together in community and help the land.
You know, as we're talking about that, I'm thinking about the love you feel for a pet. And the way you know, we cuddle with them, we pet them, we kiss them, and we just schmoozle them, right? And it's such a nice feeling. And I think feeling the same way about the land is important. Everything you do impacts it, and it's really important to be kind and loving. It's a pretty tiny wetland, but I still like it.
In the life of a forest, we're here for a very short time. And so we just love the land, and so we want to see it protected. For the next person that buys it, then it will still be protected.
If you're interested in becoming a habitat steward and you want to learn more, you can contact the habitat stewardship staff at HAT, and you can also get a land care assessment where we'll come in and meet with you on the land and identify some of your stewardship goals, and we'll be happy to help in any way we can to offer resources and tools to get you there.
That was a wonderful video. I really like that one. That I think captures HAT's spirit so very well. Just before we move forward to the staff report, we'd like to just finish off the voting for the financial report and the financials, or the treasurer's report and the financial statements. Just wanted to see if there was anyone opposed to the treasurer's report. And if there is no opposition, then we can declare that the motion is passed. And the same for the financial statements. Is there anyone opposed to the financial statements as presented? And hearing no opposition there, we can declare that that motion is also passed. So we'll move on to the staff report. We hand it over to Katie. Thanks, Katie.
Thank you. Thanks, Elizabeth. Yeah, awesome video. So fun to see some of our habitat stewards. Thanks, Rod. Thanks, Nithya and Scott. You guys are awesome. So I just wanted to say it's always such a joy to present the staff report, and I think it's the best part of the AGM. We get to hear all about all of the amazing work that that we've been doing over the year. And we really barely have time to scratch the surface of everything that's happened over the course of the year. Is just mind-boggling to try to wrap our heads around. And so we'll do our best to give the overview, but I wanted to say, if there's something that piques your interest or that you want to hear more about, please ask a question or please follow up with us after the meeting. You can call, you can stop by anytime. We're happy to tell you a lot more about what we're up to. Stan, here we go. Thank you. And we can do the next slide. Okay, so I'd like to also start the staff report by recognizing again that all of HAT's work this year has taken place in the traditional territories of the Lekwungen Nations, the Husainich Nations, Chianu First Nation, Sauk Nation, and many other Coast Salish and Nuu-chah-nulth peoples. The work that we do is inextricably linked with land and territory and has a direct effect on the Indigenous communities for whom the effects of colonialism have already caused great harm and estrangement from territory. We're working really hard to examine and adapt the ways that we're doing our work to better align with reconciliation and partnership principles with Indigenous communities. So you'll hear a little bit more about some of the ways that we're doing that, but that's a really important principle to root all of our work in. I also just want to acknowledge our amazing team. Stan, we can go to the next slide. Oh, that's me talking to the Governor General. Yeah, here's our awesome HAT team. I just so look forward to coming to work every day to see all of these folks. We have had incredible growth this year, as you've heard and you'll keep hearing. We were the recipient of some grants that allowed us to do quite a bit of hiring, including a full-time restoration crew. The crew's been working since June and they are still working. They've done an incredible amount of work. We've got a lot of new team members who I know all of you either have met or will have the pleasure of meeting soon. Since the last AGM, our new staff members are Stanley Mason, Chris Weiserick, Danielle Buckle, Tiffany Joseph, who's actually a contractor, Jordana Heron, Max Mitchell, Hannah Glass, and Ellie Fox. So that's a lot of new team members, and I'm not even sure everyone is pictured in these photos, but that's a little bit of the fun we've been having over the year, getting to know each other. And next slide. This year we said a fond farewell to two longtime HAT team members, Wendy Tyrrell and Barb Von Sacken. Wendy and Barb have just been such integral members of the HAT team for many years. It was sad to see them go. They both had incredible career opportunities with partner organizations. So we have wished them all the best, and we've kept in close touch. We're partnering with both of them still. So although we miss them, they're not far away. And I like to say you can, with HAT, you can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. So, you know, they will always be part of the family. And now basically I'm going to get out of the way and let the rest of the team shine. So I'll turn it over to our next speaker, who is Chris Kikila Perrin.
Evening, everyone. Thanks all for coming. You recognize me from emails, mostly about your membership, but some other fun stuff too. I'm Chris, or Kikila, and the Kikila thing is going to come in handy considering there's another Chris presenting in a minute as well. I'm a settler of mostly Germanic and Celtic descent, and I am the Community and Development Coordinator at HAT. Stan, if you don't mind going to the next slide. All right, on. So it was a big year for HAT. Now this happened outside of the fiscal, but we want to talk about it because it just happened. HAT celebrated its 25th anniversary, and for those of you who could make it, it was I'm sure you remember, it was a phenomenal evening filled with great musicians like HAT's very own Andy McKinnon, and it was a phenomenal multi-generational hat gathering. There were people from Hat's entire history there, and that was so fun to see. And it was great to see fun partnerships growing, like Alina from Owl and Bear Studio, who hopefully those of you who were there that night got a chance to interact with and purchase some of her awesome art, which if you've seen the calendars this year, those come straight out of Alina's creative mind. Stan, next slide, please. And of course, that's us being done Mountain Roads officially on the CRD Atlas. So that's really good news. You know, you've heard it before and you'll hear it again. Mountain Road was a huge thing for us last year. 1,442 donors, one of Hat's largest fundraising campaigns. And that actually netted us 400 new donors, which a lot of them came from the area, which is so important to us because the Good Neighbors program is transitioning into Husainish territory up the peninsula, and it's great to be more active in that territory. And some of the new donors were even names you've heard before, like Neil Young and Daryl Hannah. That was a blast getting a donation from them, and some other fun stuff came out of it, like increasing our partnership with Phillips Brewery, as you can see there, who named Hat and Mountain Road as the beneficiary of their benefit brew. And so many people got to visit that place. It was incredible. It was a really good campaign for us. Next slide, please, Stan. Still, pivoting with COVID and all of the new ways we have of interacting with each other. We celebrated our second annual ice cream social, and it was so great to see some of you folks come out. It was so interesting to replace this, the membership lunch with the ice cream social, because we just couldn't have so many folks in a room anymore. But though, because it's the 25th anniversary, I want you to all keep this in mind. Something will be coming up this year, either a new ice cream social or another way to celebrate membership. And we'd like you thinking about, stories of your experience with Hat, because we're going to share about the 25 years. And I'd also like to call out Karen Yearsley for her wonderful community-based fundraiser for Hat. She sells tomatoes out of her backyard and donates all the proceeds to us, saplings. You can go pick them up. We'll put it in a newsletter. Keep your eyes on the fern. And it's been a great year for celebrating partnerships with the Wavelengths Community Choir and the Get and Higher Choir, who for the second time named Hat as a beneficiary for one of their concerts that took place at the end of January. These are great folks. If you love music and you love celebrating Hat, keep your eyes peeled for more out of them. They've been also participating in restoration in Husainish territory as well, which is great to keep building on those relationships. Next slide, please, Stan. And of course, this year we've been growing a lot of our partnerships. Like we mentioned Phillips earlier, Seasider as well. They were a huge donor to the 25th anniversary with some cider, and we're looking forward to getting them out on the land this year as well. But don't forget, you folks as members, you have a choice now between a tax receipt and benefits. And as you can see here, there's so many folks partnering with us to try and stretch those benefits and stretch your Hat membership. And to give us a chance to build the community together. So, hey, I'm about to pass this over to Stan, but please, if you can this year, as you saw, 65% increase in membership. That's huge. Celebrate yourselves for that. Thank you very much. And try and recruit some friends. If you know folks who you think Hat would benefit from them participation, please just give them my email. Thanks very much. And I want to pass this over to Stan.
Wonderful. Hi, everyone. I'm Stanley, new to the Hat team. It's been truly an honor to work with these guys over the last few months. I've got a very quick couple of slides for you guys. I just wanted to show off our new website. Over the last 3 months, myself, Rhonda, and Danielle, as well as input from the team, have kind of overhauled the whole Hat website. It's very exciting. One major point, it looks a lot prettier. And the second thing is it is a lot more user-friendly, both for you guys as people navigating the website, but also for us as sometimes not the most tech-savvy team to have a very user-friendly website and design software. It's pretty great. I just wanted to quickly mention the donate page might look slightly different, but it's still us, don't worry. And at the bottom of that is frequently asked questions. So if you have any questions, you can go there. And we're always here at the end of the phone, or you can just drop us an email. And then on the right-hand side, we also have the store. You can now order some merch online if you want to support Hat that way. You totally can, and we'll get stuff to you that way. I also wanted to show off, you can also sign up to the Fern on the website now a lot easier, and you can also check out the last few Ferns just there on the bottom, which is super exciting. On the right-hand side, we also have volunteer events that you can sign up for. We have a couple of volunteer events coming up in the spring. Well, in fact, very soon. So it's definitely worth going and checking out. A little plug for those coming up. And you can sign up directly online and you can join us on those events, making it nice and easy. And then if you want to read the annual report, which is fresh off the press, that's also on the website, as well as the financial statements and the strategic plan for 2020 to 2024. Wow, numbers. And that's pretty much everything from me, guys. Just definitely recommend checking out the website. A lot of effort went into it and it's very pretty. That's it. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Rhonda. Thanks for listening to me.
Hello. Thanks, Dan. The website's super exciting. My name is Rhonda Woodstrap. For those of you that haven't met me before, I'm the stewardship coordinator in an acting capacity, taking over from Paige Erickson-McGee, and she's now the program manager. Spoiler alert for those of you that didn't know. I'm going to do a quick rundown of the Good Neighbors program, wildlife, and green spots in the past year. All right, Stan, you can switch pages. Perfect. All right, so our Good Neighbors program continues to support people in different ways through our various initiatives, including invasive species removal, plant salvage, training and relocation, restoring and planting for habitat, and wildlife stewardship. You can see in the slide here, this is a particularly tricky invasive removal we did, removing yellow flag iris from a pond in Machosen of one of our habitat stewards. It was great fun, but super cold on a December day in our wetsuits. And next slide, if you'd like, Stan, thanks. The past year we performed 31 site visits and had 7 new habitat stewards sign up for our program. We hosted 29 stewardship skill building workshops. These not only help people grow their skills, but connect like-minded people and create independent support networks from HAT. This past year, it's worth noting, we wrapped up our 3-year Wildwood Wetlands Wildlife Corridor project, and we're now shifting to a new Good Neighbors program model. Paige Erickson-McGee later in the thing will elaborate more, but basically we're shifting from an area-based Good Neighbors model to an ecosystem-based, and we're shifting towards the focus on oak and prairie areas, sometimes known as Gary Oak ecosystems, which allows us not only have better continuation through our habitat stewards and support them for longer term, but also allows us the chance to reconnect with some habitat stewards that we haven't seen in a very long time. Sorry, I went off script. All right, next slide, Stan. Perfect. This year in stewardship and wildlife stewardship, we were so lucky to have Danielle Buckle on our team. She allowed our wildlife programs to proceed at a scale that has not been possible in many years. And not only that, she's a wonderful human being. And we are so excited that we were able to have her on the team. Here we also have a photo of us doing some monitoring work at Mountain Road, looking at it as potential screech owl habitat. So that's exciting. All right, next page, Stan. All right, in the summer, we ran the annual bat count as per usual. As the South Island chapter of the BC Community Bat Program, we had the help of 40 wonderful volunteers, and a total of 370 volunteer hours were spent counting bats. We had many wonderful volunteers help us construct bat boxes and even transport dead bats all the way to the bat lab in Nanaimo. One highlight, we are currently in the process of transforming a barn into a safe space for bats in North Saanich, and look forward to sharing more on that. And we also helped the Nanaimo Land Trust Conservancy. Oh, my apologies on the abbreviation for that, but they are now establishing a mid-island bat program. And we're really excited because we weren't able to support the mid-island in their bat activities as much as we would have liked. I'd like to note that the bat program would not have been possible without the tireless work of our volunteers, and with a special mention to John Potter, Tristan Mose, and Mandy Kellner. All right, next slide, Stan. In the winter and spring, we usually do our Western Screech Owl project. In the early March, we had 10 volunteers out listening for the presence of owls. These are cold and dark nights, so thank you for that. 51 owl nest boxes were also monitored for the presence of owls, and we had 1 successful nesting pair in one of our boxes with 3 chicks fledged. On top of that, we installed 4 new nest boxes to increase owl nesting habitat. And some really exciting news, a highlight, we were able to, thanks to audio recordings, we confirmed the presence of a Western screech owl that has not been heard since the 1980s. So we're really excited about that. A special shout out to some volunteers that this program would not be possible without. So Tanya Tripp, Joanna Preston, and Ben Van Dremlin. All right, next page, Stan. Finally, green spots. Just a quick one for this. This year we supported 3 schools in putting in native plant gardens. These were at View Royal Elementary, Colquitts Middle School, and Royal Bay Secondary School. Total, we engaged 530 kids in garden planting and installed 625 native plants. All right, that is all. And next up, I have forgotten, is Chris W. Perfect.
Hey everyone, I'm Chris number 2 on the HAT team. I've been here for about 6 months now as the land protection coordinator. And so I've been thrilled to meet a lot of you on the Zoom and look forward to meeting the rest of you who I haven't met soon. Just before I begin, I want to acknowledge that I'm in a bit of a unique position here because I get to tell you about a lot of great things and a lot of huge successes that I actually had very little to do with. And that's of course due to all the hard work from the entire team before I came on, but in particular, Barb von Sacken, who had my role previous to me taking it. I'm sure almost all of you on this call know Barb and her, I think, well over a decade of service to HAT. And so I just want to say I'm very grateful for her, not only for all the success we've had this year, but in fact, in really developing and establishing a land protection program and making it such a treat to inherit and to continue and to improve. And improve we did in 2021 with really, I think, the keystone of our land protection program this year in terms of a new addition, which you've heard people talk about already, the Mountain Road Forest Project. And Stan, you can go to the next slide if that's okay. Gakila, I know, already talked about the huge community effort that it took, including many of you, and we're so grateful for that. From a land protection front, I just want to say, not only is that this permanently protecting a significant piece of land, nearly 50 acres, mature second growth coastal Douglas fir, just minutes from downtown with great regional connectivity, and of course providing habitat for numerous local and rare and endangered species. But from a more strategic side as well, we really worked in partnership with a lot of great organizations. We worked in partnership with the CRD quite intimately to help develop this, of course, with the initial family who owned the land for nearly half a century, I believe. And of course, over 1,000 folks in the community. And I think not only were we happy with this success as an organization, but I think it also sets up our land protection program really, really well to take those lessons we learned from working in partnerships and apply them to our future land protection projects as well. And it shows how HAT can sort of have an outsized impact on conservation in our region. So certainly a success in its own right for protecting this gem of a property, but I think a success for our organization from a more strategic perspective as well. But of course, that wasn't our only activity in this portfolio, far from it. I've had a bit of my thunder stolen from me already today, but the Gins Conservation Area was a second property that we were really pleased to acquire just at the start of this fiscal year. Again, a regionally significant piece of land, 23-hectare parcel, with quite incredible connectivity all through the Thetis Lake Park region, which I'm sure many of you on the call will be familiar with. Again, sort of mature second growth coastal Douglas forest with a huge wetland as well. So providing not only obviously huge ecological benefits and values, but habitat for a number of rare and important species as well. So very pleased to be able to protect this permanently. Aside from acquiring and protecting land, we also had a really successful 2021 monitoring season. And of course, that's completing our monitoring as we're required to do for the 16 covenants that HAT is the primary monitor on. A huge thanks to Danielle Buckleby, you can see in both of these photos, along with a whole host of committed volunteers who pitched in to make our program such a success this year. Pleased to report that there were no huge violations or anything negative to report, so that's certainly good news. And while all the credit for that goes to Danielle and to our volunteers for performing such a good job on the monitoring, I also want to acknowledge our landowners themselves. It's a really big deal to have the foresight and the integrity to put a covenant on your property, as we saw from Scott and Nitya and others in the Good Neighbors video. Because you're making a gift, not only I think for our generation, but for future generations. And so I want to thank you not only for doing that and supporting us, but in fact, in choosing us and working with HAT. It's something we don't take lightly. We know it's a huge responsibility to be trusted in that way. And so we're grateful to have that trust and to continue earning that trust. If you're sitting there and thinking, wow, that sounds really cool, I'd love to have a covenant on my property, shoot me an email, please, or shoot Stan an email or any one of our team an email, or give us a call. We'd be more than happy to talk to you about options for that. That wraps up my section. Certainly a number of successes this year, and we're already establishing criteria and vetting opportunities for this coming year. So looking forward to providing more details as 2022 progresses to all of you. And I'll turn it over to my colleague, Sarah Lax, for her update.
Thanks so much, Chris. It's hard to follow. So articulate. It's nice to see so many familiar faces out there and new faces as well. My name is Sarah Lax and I'm the acting habitat management coordinator. And I just want to say that it's, I was filling big shoes this year. Wendy Tyrrell has been with HAT, as you knew, for 14 years and really developed the habitat management program and community-based restoration programming that we did and continue to do. And so, yeah, I just want to say that, all of the work that's been happening this year would not have been possible without, a lot of legwork that Wendy put in for many, many years to make it where we are today. So thank you. And so with that, I just want to talk about, gifts and, ecological gifts and all these different pieces, but, gifts come in all shapes and sizes. And I truly believe that the ones that support healthy communities and ecological communities are the ones that last a lifetime. And I think that really builds on what Chris was just mentioning. And this year, one of the greatest gifts to HAT was the opportunity to hire a restoration crew, a GIS technician, for 8 months, and to see the health of the land and the strength of our staff team and community really flourish before our eyes. And 2021 was a very special year for HAT as well, because we received, as you know, the Conservation Economic Stimulus Initiative funding from Habitat Conservation Trust Foundation, one of our partners, and the Ministry of Environment. And this work, would not have been possible without the leadership of Wendy and Katie setting up that funding long in advance. And so this economic stimulus initiative and priority places funding enabled HAT to employ 6 full-time employees to restore Gary Oak and associated ecosystems on HAT's protected lands in particular. The HAT restoration crew members who made this work possible were Hannah Glass, Ellie Fox, Max Mitchell, and Emma LaFontaine, who worked for many, many hours removing invasive species and planting native plants on HAT protected lands, as well as our Habitat Stewards properties as well. We were also very lucky to have Jordana Heron join us in September as our GIS and data technician. Jordana's work has been essential to making our reporting data and management maps look so clean and organized. And then in addition to employing this amazing full-time team, we also strengthened our partnerships with Indigenous communities and organizations through supporting Indigenous-led restoration projects in the forests of Sakem, Sneakwith, and Pawquetchin. We hope that the momentum gained from these community partnerships, the crew's restoration efforts, and the dedicated efforts of our 2 stewardship groups, the Mats and Maddox. Shout out to Roger, Alan, Peter, Eva, and Robbie, as well as the Friends of Havenwood Park. So Carol, David, Margaret, and Simon, as well as Robbie and others. And so, it's really because of these groups that we were able to remove 388 meters cubed approximately, and counting, of invasive plant biomass across 5.8 hectares of oak ecosystem on HAT's protected lands. So just to kind of figure out a number for you that you can grab onto, that's about 1,105 smart cars full of invasive plant biomass and 14 football fields cleared of Scotch broom and other invasive plants for all those Seahawks football fans in the audience out there. We are thrilled that the crew not only were able to work with us over the past few months, but they've actually been able to join us again with more funding in February and March, with additional funding to continue removing invasive plants, but also to do some more monitoring work as well. So this is just a photo here of some of the restoration work that the crew and myself worked on this summer. You can see in the bottom right corner there, those are biomass bags at one of the covenants in Machosen that we worked on. And there's over 180 bags of biomass there. So, a lot of work was done over the last 8 months. And that's it for my section, but, thank you so much for listening, and I hope to see you all at a restoration event soon. As Stanley was mentioning, the new website is up and running, and there's a whole page dedicated to just signing up for volunteer events. So please go and sign up. Thanks so much.
Oh, it's me. This is exciting. Okay, so you may already recognize me, but thanks, Sarah, for passing this on. My name is Paige, and I've been around here a little while now and recently took on the role of program manager, as I think Rhonda mentioned, and a few other folks, which really just means I get to crunch numbers with Katie, but I also get to support the amazing and talented team who are on the land and in the community, mostly Rhonda, Sarah, Danielle, Jordana, Tiffany, and the restoration crew. And this is, you know, it's also a lot of just keeping our programs running smoothly with our usual community-centered conservation values that HAT holds. So one of the new initiatives for stewardship, if you want to go to the next slide, Stan, is, yeah, thanks, is this native plant salvaging. And this kind of came to us unexpectedly, and I'll tell that story another day. But, you know, although development of natural spaces is not our ideal outcome, but we were able to conserve the genetic diversity of the plants themselves through, you know, which does build resilience to factors like climate change. And we were able to give them, you know, these new homes by relocating them to restoration sites and giving them a second chance at life. So we trained 90 volunteers as plant salvagers in the last year and rescued over 22,000 plants that would otherwise not be able to continue. So lots of amazing volunteers that have dedicated, you know, hundreds of hours, as you can see, to that work. And lots of sites are now with many new plants, which saves us costs in our budget line and also just provides a great opportunity for learning as well. Okay, next slide, Stan. So now I want to just switch gears a little bit and talk to you about a new partnership-based approach that we're taking on in the stewardship realm. So as Rhonda mentioned, we've transitioned from sort of geographic-based focuses like watersheds or parks for our good neighbors, and are now focusing more on sort of ecosystems and habitats and being able to kind of dive deeper in that direction. And so we're focusing now on coastal oak and prairie ecosystems, which, you know, we have been calling Gary Oak around here, and we're, you know, working on transitioning that terminology without those colonial roots to describe what is, you know, a functionally deeply cultural landscape. And this sort of collection of ecosystems are still present thanks to the careful tending and stewardship by these Salish families who call this region home. And so our conservation and stewardship efforts really must be rooted in the teachings from the land and from its people. And so this partnership approach is led us to working with Tiffany Joseph, who I think you can go to the next slide, Stan, there. Yeah, so Tiffany, we're incredibly lucky that she's able to join us on our team as in a consulting role and really help us sort of do a lot of unlearning first and then collaborate on caring for the land in a good way, or in other words, ensure our stewardship work is rooted in respect for the teachings from the land and from its people. And Tiffany couldn't be here tonight, but we did want to give that space for her voice. And so we included some words here that she wrote and are representative of, you know, what she hopes to do with us and bring to HAT. And part of that is working on what we're sort of calling a framework. If you want to go to the next slide, Stan. Thanks. So this framework is informing what we do, and so it's Equatel Tumuk, which is really about, you know, the sacred relationship to land and the territory, and how there's this sort of deep sort of kinship-based model that I think we can incorporate in the HAT conservation work that we're doing, and we really want it to be rooted in collaboration. And so we've been fortunate to have some amazing partnerships with different Indigenous communities, most specifically highlighted here with the Chiana or Beecher Bay Nation and the youth group. And that's kind of on the top row there, and being able to work with all folks from being on the land to working in career fairs to learning different skills. I think it's been a really insightful experience for HAT staff and informs of how we're going to move forward. And so this collaborative conservation partnership framework is really going to be led by Indigenous community members like Tiffany, we can see on the left, bottom left, and Sarah Jim in the center, and Christina Armstrong on the right there, who's leading the stewards of Chiana Society. And these are going to be, guiding principles that we're going to sort of empower these community leaders through mentorship, kinship, and resilience. And there's going to be, this work is going to be sort of alongside our usual HAT landowner contact work that we do. But I think we're really focusing on a deep dive to coastal oak and prairie landscapes and how we can all work to be better stewards of that space. And so I'm really looking forward to sharing more as we work towards this project. But I think that completes our staff report. If you want to go to the next slide. And some of you might have been wondering, what this photo represents. Maybe Katie will fill us in, but it was some cold water swimming for Katie's birthday. That just happened, so we can wish Katie a belated happy birthday, and wanted to say thanks so much for her leadership over this last year. It's been really inspirational and helpful to all of us. Couldn't do it without you. But we did want to now open the space for questions or comments or feedback. And Stan's put up some very helpful tips. You can also shout it out if you're so inclined. Thanks, everyone.
Stan, maybe we can unshare the screen so we can see folks, better see each other. Just take any questions that might be brewing out there or not. It was a lot. Thanks everyone for listening to the staff report. And
Thanks for the thumbs up, Rod.
Oh, thanks, Rod.
That's nice. We're doing a lot of stuff. If everyone's fully overwhelmed.
And with that, I think, Elizabeth, I'll turn it over to you to call for a motion to approve the staff report.
Good, thank you very much. That was an amazing report, you guys. We certainly did a lot in the last year, and there's more to come. So this is going to be a great year coming up as well. So I'm going to move that the staff report be accepted as
second that.
Given. Rod Mitchell, good, thank you. And anyone opposed? Then the motion is passed. A lot of no way, man, we're not opposing that. Good, the motion is passed in that case. Now we're going to just move on to another lovely interlude with one of our partners. So this is a song by the Getting Higher Choir and the Wavelengths Community Choir. It's a nice representation of one of the partnerships that we had, one of the fundraisers we had during the year. So I'll let it go forward.
This guitar came from a timber, from the body of a tree, with the workshop of a luthier, and now it's on loan to me.
And it's good company after dinner, and it fits my hands just fine, but someday another singer with a folks are gonna love it. Of this I'm almost sure. So I'll take good care of it, 'cause I'm borrowing it from her. Pass it along, pass it along. May it land in careful hands when we're gone. You carry it for a moment, but time won't loan it to you for long. You don't own it, pass it along.
This here is my country. Sometimes it's hard to recognize it, but I count myself lucky to have been born inside it.
And I'm grateful for the rights others struggled hard to win. And you know I'm gonna fight when they try to take them back again. Oh, and everywhere our teachers, though some fell along the way, but the words they said still read just like you're teaching me here today. And it may not be loud, but it's clear in what you do, and I hope to make you proud, because I borrowed it from you. Pass it along, pass it along. May it land in careful hands when we're gone. You carry it for a moment, but time won't loan it to you for long. You don't own it, pass it along. Seems these days we're in a hurry to grab up all that's left to use, putting patents on discoveries, making seeds that don't reproduce. If our vision is so narrow, seeing only bought and sold, we'll end up like the pharaohs, buried with their gold. We've all pushed this thing along, we've been guided by our fear, but the river sings a song we've gotta be quieter to hear. It's in every child's face, it's as hopeful as a step. Best be gentle with this place, 'cause we're borrowing it from them. Pass it along, pass it along. May it land in careful hands when we're gone. You carry it for a moment, but time won't loan it to you for long. You don't own it, pass it along, pass it along.
That was lovely. That was really lovely. Thanks, and then thank you for that note, Kikila, to Mike Wyatt for getting that organized. That's really super. And thank you, Mike. Okay, and we move on to more business. Next, we have the election of directors. And there's two parts to this. We've got an outgoing director and we've got an incoming director. So I think we just start with our outgoing director. Does that sound good, Katie? Is that where we're going? So I'm going to do the honors on this, of course, because it's Andrew, and I've known Andrew for quite some time and really respect him as a person and as a board member, as a biologist, and all the things he's been. So tonight we say farewell to Andrew. HAT's bylaws limit board members, I think Katie mentioned this earlier, to 2 consecutive 3-year terms in a row. And tonight, Andrew Harcombe has come to the end of a 6-year block of service on the HAT board. In fact, Andrew has served as a volunteer on the HAT board for a total of 21 years since 1998, the equivalent of 7 3-year terms. This includes 6 years as a treasurer and at least 2 years as president. Andrew's deep and broad experience as a biologist who has worked in conservation in both government and non-government sectors has been invaluable to HAT. He's been a voice that roots us in science and also pushes us to achieve big goals. He's been a tremendous support to the executive directors over the years, and he's seen several of them. Andrew, we thank you for your incredible service to HAT. We look forward to gifting Andrew with a token of appreciation for all his work in this most recent term as board member the next time we're actually able to see each other face to face. But in the meantime, please accept our true appreciation of your time, effort, and skills over the past 6 years and before. Thank you very much, Andrew, and we are really going to miss you. All the muted clapping, but that's very heartfelt. We will miss you, Andrew. And as I was told when I first came on, don't for a second think it's really a 3-year term. It's a 6-year term. But I'm glad you were here for the whole 6. Now I'll pass over to Katie for the next. Oh, sorry, but Andrew, was there anything you wanted to say?
No, just that I have a lot of passion for HAT's conservation efforts over the years. When I first joined, I guess back in the 90s, when we were in the process of trying to raise enough money to acquire Iron Creek out in Souk, and have been on and off the board since then. But I've just really enjoyed my time to date, and helping out where I can. So I'm very appreciative of your kind words. I think that's the nicest things you've said about me in a long time, Elizabeth.
I thought you'd like that. No, it's definitely heartfelt, and hopefully we'll see you back. It's not over yet. Okay, and now we move on to new incoming directors. Katie, I'll give that to you.
Yeah, I echo my thanks to Andrew. You're amazing. 21 years on the HAT board. It's incredible. So each year, HAT puts out a call to our membership and general supporters who may wish to join our board. We try to put it out in newsletters and other opportunities to give people an opportunity to express their interest and for us to have some time to get to know folks. This year, Dan Grant put his hand up to volunteer. There's Dan right there, to volunteer for board service. So we're really pleased tonight to introduce Dan and nominate him as a new HAT board member. Dan has extensive professional background that will be of service in HAT strategic and governance discussions, as well as our operational planning. Dan's professional expertise comes from working in the realm of parks, lands, and planning throughout Western Canada over the course of his career. His expertise spans a lot of different areas that are relevant to HAT's work. Some of those skills and expertise, he's being humble, include park and natural resource assessment, planning, management, analysis, and interpretation. His experience and skills also include strategic and business planning and analysis, nonprofit management, risk management, partnership development, issues and conflict management. That never is relevant. Communications and media relations, and fundraising. So we're really grateful to Dan for his willingness to volunteer on the board. Can I please ask for a motion to elect Dan Grant to the board of directors?
So I'd like to do that as the outgoing director, if I may. With great pleasure, I'd like to nominate Dan Grant as the new director for HAT.
I'll second that. It's Pierre.
You're muted, Elizabeth.
As often happens. Was there anyone who is in opposition to the motion, the nomination? No, no, you can't.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
You have to leave the room, Dan.
That's right. There we go. There we go. We're good. Okay, in that case, the nomination is passed. Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard, Dan. Thank you so much for being there. So we have a new board member with us, which is fantastic. So I think we've come to the end of our AGM. There was no new business presented at the beginning, so I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting at this point. Do I have someone who can second that motion?
Katie Bell seconds.
Thank you very much. Anyone in opposition, or are we good to go?
Adjournments don't require seconding.
Oh, excellent. Well, in that case,
Do we either
we're just
agree
gonna-
with it or oppose it?
You see, this is it. This is why we really liked having Andrew around. So if there's no one in opposition of adjourning the meeting, we will adjourn the meeting now. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. We certainly appreciate it all. Thank you.